News Channel 5 Network. This is Morning Line.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line on this Monday. I am Nick Barris. Hope you had a good weekend, and I hope you'll join in the conversation this morning. We've got a good show on tap for you. We'll open up the phone lines in a moment and give you a chance to join in if you'd like, as we're talking about the concept, the idea of, I suppose, affordable housing in Nashville. Does it even exist anymore? Have you priced anything of late? I mean, if you want to live in the city, are you a millionaire? I mean, these days, because the property values are skyrocketing so quick, you know, the city and I think the council is taking a hard look at trying to find ways to provide for some affordable housing to maintain, options for people who want to live and work in the city. And times are changing here. It's changed a lot. And as a result, Metro Council has passed a pair of proposals to kind of jumpstart the idea of affordable housing in Davidson County in general, but then also city. So I'm not just talking about the really high-end areas in the Gulch, but around the whole area. And the truth is, I was telling our guests who you'll meet in just a moment that the whole idea of expensive housing is happening well outside Davidson County. I live in Wilson County. It's crazy the prices of some of the homes there. And then there's a trickle down to everything else. As those goes up, the cost of rentals go up. And so the idea of setting some aside for affordable housing, I think, and I think a lot of people would agree, is a good idea. The question is how you do it. So we're going to get into it this morning with our two guests, the two Metro Council individuals with us, Bob Mendez and Berkeley Allen. Thank you both for coming on this morning.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Does that make sense? Everything's kind of spendy these days, huh?
It's very expensive.
And it's a double-edged sword. Isn't it cool? Everyone wants to live in Nashville, Davidson County. People are coming from out of state. This is the it city in the country right now, and it's a wonderful place to live. There's no question about it. But before too long, and we're going to see soon with the new property tax assessment, how it's going to price some people out of the ability to live here. And so I thought maybe we'd start and give you each a chance. I know you both supported the idea. Can you talk about these proposals and give us a little background on what you think they will do? Why don't we start with you, Berkeley?
Okay, I will start with saying, first of all, this is one tool in the toolbox.
Okay.
Affordable housing in Nashville is a very complicated issue that has many parts and pieces to it, and will have lots of different solutions by lots of different departments and organizations. So this focuses specifically on what we call workforce housing.
Right.
Our hope is that it will enable people who are in our service industry, our creative people, some of our teachers, our people who take care of us, firemen, policemen, people like that, to be able to afford close to where they work and close to where the good transportation is.
Yeah, to live in the area that they're working.
Exactly.
And right now, especially if you're someone in the service industry, you think about the salaries you make doing that to be able to afford some of these mortgages. It's just absurd. It can't be done, can it?
That's correct.
It's just too much. So, all right, the idea then behind that, how do you do that? How do you make it affordable for them?
Well, so what we passed, the inclusionary zoning last week, is really a small experiment. The idea is that when a developer wants something from Metro, when they want to be able to build more than they can, they come to Metro, they ask for what's called an increased entitlement, and Metro says, sure, but in exchange, you'll need to build some affordable units. And that's the basic exchange, is we're trying to have a market-based solution where developers are made whole for them building units that are more affordable for more people.
Okay, and the idea, you think about free enterprise, and if you leave it to the developer's own devices, as you would expect in America, they're going to build and charge the most they can for the most high-end items. But because we control some of the permits for what they can build, this is where the exchange is. All right, you're going to build this 100-unit condo, all right? As part of the approval for you to be able to do this, we expect you to set aside maybe 10 of the units to be, I don't know, I'm just throwing that number out, to be something that would be considerably more affordable than the rest of the building. Is that right?
Yeah, and I can give you an example.
Okay, yeah.
So if a developer buys a property somewhere in the inner core of the city, it might have zoning that would allow building, say, 25 units.
Okay.
But they could put a high-rise on it if Metro would let them build 100 units. And so they'll come to Metro and ask for a change in the zoning that will let them build the 100 units instead of the 25 that they were originally zoned for. That extra 75 units, the new ordinance would require that 10 to 15% of those units would then become affordable in exchange for giving the right to build the extra units. That way we are getting what we incentivize people to build. As you mentioned, with the market, people will do what they're incentivized to do.
Sure.
And if somebody wants to build a high-rise or a larger unit than they're entitled to, then the exchange with the city is, sure, but we need you to build this.
Okay, and to purchase one of those more affordable units, individuals would have to qualify financially. I'm just curious, how would that work?
Sure, you want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
there'll be a vetting process, and I think we probably need to clarify at this point, the way the ordinance ended up being, it puts more emphasis on the rental than on for sale. Our consultant did an inordinate amount of economic analysis of how is this going to work, how much incentive do we need to provide to make this actually work for the builder, because we do need to make them whole, and it's much more complicated for the for sale options.
So you're saying then what they would make are units that would be available for rent, and over how many years? I mean, would
We're
that be
looking at a
forever?
15-year period.
15 years they would have to set these units aside to be rentals. Okay, so it's easier to do rentals than to sell. So then if someone wanted to rent one of the normal units, or not normal, more expensive ones.
Market rate, we call them.
Market rate, okay, thank you. Then they'd pay a certain amount. To qualify for some of them that are below market rate, you would have to have a certain income?
Yes, and they would provide that financial information, and there are people who've been doing this for years already for other types of properties where this is
something
a
like this had happened, right? Okay.
Right, exactly. And so so they provide that financial information, and this person has gone through this process before, who knows
Sure.
what to look for, and to be sure that the number one, they are earning an income, but it's an income that's within a certain bracket. That would qualify them as an average income for the county.
And to put some meat on that, in Nashville, the statistic we're using is median household income, which includes Davidson County only, and the median household income is around $42,000.
Okay, I was going to ask that. I was wondering. So $42,000,
which is a little bit less than the starting salary for a Metro public school teacher.
Okay.
It's somewhere around the starting salary for a police officer, a firefighter, and that's 100% of the median household income. In the terminology of affordable housing, that's called workforce housing. People who have jobs like that currently have a very hard time buying, renting, being in most parts of the city. And the idea is we're not talking about housing for people in poverty. We're talking about housing for people who have got good paying jobs who just can't find a place to live in most of Nashville at this point.
And we're not just talking then, by the way, about, say, the most expensive areas like maybe down near the Gulch. We're talking about throughout Davidson County.
Throughout Davidson County.
So if you're, to qualify, you would have to be in that ballpark of the median income, right?
Right.
Right around there. And so what would you guess a typical monthly rental fee would be? We're talking.
What it should be.
What should it be? Yeah.
It should be $800 for a single person, or $1,500 for a family of 4.
What is it kind of now?
In
without
my neighborhood,
yes.
if you are lucky, you can find a studio for $1,500. So.
And your neighborhood's out West End area?
I'm out West End, Hillsborough, West End area.
Yeah, that's quite a difference. That's quite a change for a studio. $1,500. So, and certainly, if you could, so you would think that it might set it up so that some of the rent could be $800 to $900 for a one-bedroom.
That is the goal.
Wow. Can you imagine that, living in town with that? I didn't even think something like that could exist.
Well, only if financial incentives are available.
I understand. That's the only way something like that happens. And ultimately, how many units do you hope this might produce that would be available like that? Because I imagine there'll be a lot of demand for them.
Yeah, I think there will be. The way it's set up is that there's a grant program that was the second bill that was passed.
And we'll get into that, yeah.
That would provide the difference.
Okay.
And so it sort of depends on what the gap between the market rate and the workforce rate is.
Okay.
If it was an average of $500 per unit, then we could get 300 units that first year with the money that's set aside.
Okay, and what you said about the grant then, so this grant money then will help make up the difference for the owner?
Right.
But I thought they're doing this because you're giving them a special deal to build it.
Well, if you do the economics, you need practically MBA and be very
that's way over
proficient
my
in
head.
Excel.
Yeah.
Mine too. But the bottom line is that even when you increase the number of units from my example 25 to 100, once you make some of them affordable, there's still a shortfall in the profit compared to what they would make if they were selling 100 market rate units, and that difference is something that
Don't they have to bite the bullet on that because you're giving them the good deal to build the extra units?
In some cities,
we'll connect you with the Chamber of Commerce about that.
Okay, I'm just saying, they're getting a sweet deal anyway. I don't see why you have to make them whole on a few units, because the alternative is you don't want to do it, fine. You don't get the permit to build more.
Right.
Que sera.
We've had that conversation, but and a lot of them have been very helpful in providing us their pro formas and saying, here's how our numbers work. And before we go to a bank or to an investor and say, we're going to do this project, they expect a certain set of numbers and a certain profit to cover risk and things like that. And basically what they've said is this project simply will not happen, period, unless we can show to the people that are putting money into it that it's safe and that it will return some kind of money that's commensurate with the risk that they're putting into it.
And the other thing about
We tried the first.
No, I
we didn't get very far with
understand.
that.
Because my take on this is that this is just a very, very attractive place to live, and yeah, it's going to change at some point. Things will slow down, but it's kind of like you don't want it, see ya. That's my take. And I know you guys. I know some of you probably feel the exact same way I do about that. But the numbers and the crunching, and you have other pressures from businesses, and there are some who are against any kind of legislation like this anyway, because they say that it infringes on free enterprise. But I mean, my take is, this is a very desirable place. We're giving you a sweet deal. You don't like it, see you later. We'll find someone else to take it. That's
my take is that I agree with you. And as a compromise for the initial couple years of this program, we've put it in a position where it's as Berkeley's describing, and I think that we're going to find out that there's no negative impact on the market whatsoever, and we'll be able to move the program to be more aggressive after we show that.
Okay, and the bottom line ultimately, hopefully, is through this we do get more affordable housing. We got to take a break on this. We got some calls coming in. If you're on hold, Amy and others, what do you think about it? And there's a lot more ground to cover. 737-7587. Join us, 2 council members who can answer any of your questions. We'll get to that as soon as we come back right after this. Stay with us.